Hi, I'm Pete Rulon. I'm going to begin the revised lectures on what information do you need to know to pass the Part 107. Now, in this module, we're going to be talking about rules and regulations covered under CFR Part 107. Now, there are three types of UAS, and that's unmanned aircraft systems or drones. And, and the three types are recreational, government, and commercial. Now, I'm assuming if you're looking to get your Part 107, then you are seeking your civil aircraft commercial pilot's license. Now, usually in the exam, if you hear in this lecture kind of factual information, it's highly likely that out of the 365 questions I know to be on the exam, factual information tends to be part of the questions. So to apply for an SUAS, which is a small unmanned aircraft system rating, you must be 16 years of age. You must read, write, and understand the English language. You must be in physical and mental condition as to not interfere with the safe drone operation. And that is a self-assessment that should be performed before each flight. And of course, you must complete the training and the testing requirements to receive your Part 107 pilot's license. The requirements for your drone are there are no airworthiness certification requirements. You do have to have the aircraft registered under certain conditions, and it must be obtained and displayed on your aircraft. The drone must weigh less than 55 pounds, and tethered powered drones are also included in the Part 107 definition. Some more potential questions. How much can the drone weigh? Well, the aircraft with everything on it must weigh less than 55 pounds. 54.999 pounds is okay, but 55 is out of compliance. Now, you must operate within visual line of sight, meaning the pilot in charge must have eyes on the drone at all times. Now, you must, if you are operating outside of daylight hours, you must have additional lighting in compliance with the rules. Your maximum airspeed is 100 mile an hour. Your maximum altitude is 400 feet AGL. AGL stands for above ground level. Drones regulations are above ground. Commercial airlines operate on above mean sea level, MSL. You also have to go through a pre-flight and post-flight inspection. There are weather requirements. Station visibility at your control station should be no less than 3 statute miles. You must operate 500 feet below cloud ceiling and 2,000 feet horizontally from clouds. Now, a lot of the drone apps will give you that information in real time. Okay, this is called VLOS, visual line of sight. You must be capable of seeing the drone with vision unaided by any device other than corrective lenses. Vision aids such as binoculars may only be used momentarily to aid situational awareness to avoid operating in an unsafe manner. So you have to have eyes on the drone. The remote pilot in charge, you as a Part 107 pilot, if you are the boss man, that's a PIC or pilot in charge, or person manipulating the controls, that's just someone running the sticks, may have brief moments in which he or she is not looking directly at or cannot see the small unmanned aircraft, but still retains the capability to see it or quickly maneuver it back into the line of sight. Now, where this comes into is if you are operating, you have a real a live camera. That is not a substitute for your eyes. It is only an aid. Well, you may look down to gather some information from the display and look up, and that is not a violation of the regulations, but it needs to be brief. Or you may have to fly behind something briefly to get where your mission is. No specific time interval for which interruption of visual contact is possible. Such parameters could potentially allow a hazardous interruption or prohibit a reasonable one. The remote pilot in command or person manipulating the controls must attempt to regain line of sight immediately if she or he unintentionally loses sight of the aircraft. As soon as practical if he or she loses sight of the aircraft for operational necessity. A quick hint, sometimes when you're flying fairly far out, you look down at your controller, you look up, and you've lost the drone. You can't see it. You don't know where it is. If it's safe, what I do is I briefly jump the drone up vertically, and our eyes are very good at picking up motion, and that will usually allow me to reconnect my line of sight with the drone. Fastest speed and altitude. You cannot exceed a ground speed of 87 knots or 100 mile an hour. Altitude, you cannot exceed 400 feet above ground level. If flown within a 400-foot radius of a structure, then it can be flown higher, but no higher than 400 feet above the structure's immediate uppermost elevation. Be careful. There are some questions that it is okay to fly above, let's say, a tower of a certain elevation. But what happens is that it's not allowed because that elevation puts you in controlled airspace. So always check if you have a question about flying over an obstacle that it doesn't enter controlled airspace. Right-of-way rules. No person may operate a drone in a manner that interferes with the operations and traffic patterns of any aircraft, helipad, or seaplane base. The PIC has the responsibility to yield right away to all other aircraft, manned or unmanned, and all other hazards that may affect safe operations. The FAA uses a term see and avoid. The see and avoid requirement cannot be satisfied using the first person camera live feed on your controller. They have to be, compliance must be by eyesight. So for recreational, what about operating from a moving vehicle? Part 107 allows the operation of a drone from a moving land or waterborne vehicle over a sparsely or unpopulated area. Operating from a moving aircraft is prohibited. Obviously, the driver of the vehicle is not permitted to operate the drone. Drones that are transporting another person's property for hire may not be operated from a moving vehicle. You may transport another person's property for compensation if the total takeoff weight is below the 55 pounds. You do not fly outside of a state boundary, and no items may be dropped from a drone in a manner that causes hazards. Weight limitations. Small drone systems are defined as having a total takeoff weight from 0.55 pounds up to 55 pounds. Drones of 0.55 pounds or greater must be registered. 0.55 pounds is equivalent to 250 grams. So sub 250 gram drones are subject to special regulations. What can't you do? You cannot operate a drone in a careless and reckless manner. Only one aircraft per operator. Pilot must avoid aircraft operations over people unless they meet certain requirements. You can fly in Class B, C, D, E airspaces with air traffic control ATC permission. You can fly in Class G Gulf airspace without ATC permission. You cannot transport hazardous materials. The battery in your drone that is powering the drone is a hazardous material, but is exempt from this rule. But you cannot carry a second drone battery. If you want to be a hobbyist, just for information, they are governed by the AMA, Academy of Model Aeronautics. They typically share most of the same common guidelines. They still have the 400 max elevation. You must operate within visual line of sight, but you do have to take a different test to fly. So one of the requirements is that you register your drone. So a small unmanned aircraft must be registered by its owner using the legal name of the owner unless the owner is less than 13 years of age. If the owner is less than 13 years of age, then the small unmanned aircraft must be registered by a person who is at least 13 years of age. How to register the drone? You go to Federal Drone Registration, choose your commercial registration, follow the directions, and the FAA will email your registration number and certificate immediately upon completion of the process. There is a $5 charge for that. The registrations must be visible on the outside of the drone. You must have the registration certificate with you during operations. For me, I have hard cases for all my drones. If you lift up the foam padding, I put all my documentation and my logbook under that, so I always have the required information with me when I am operating that drone. Well, this completes the rules lecture for the Part 107 test preparation video.